Hello, everybody out there. Aren't you enjoying listening to Hillary Clinton? Now she's all calm and collected. And she's, not raging at the camera saying, "Why ain't I 50 points ahead?" Remember how crazy she got during the election? And now she's all civil. And she's talking about how the mobs in the street, the leftists, the people being paid by George Soros, which we know this for a fact, they're being paid to riot and go as crazy as possible. I guess is if Soros or the people who are watching for Soros sees you go really insane, they're watching you and they see you just totally losing it. The more insane, the better. The more angry, the more violent you are, the better. Probably get a little extra in there. Bitcoin, however he's paying these people to go crazy. So I think that's the reason why we're seeing these hysterics. I know if somebody paid me enough, I'll go in front of the camera and go to that building and just act hysterical, and we'll pay you a huge amount of money. I am so poor. I am so insanely poor that, all right, as long as I don't hurt anyone, as long as I'm not going to break somebody's property, I'll act like a crazy person. You give me enough money. So if you give people enough money, this is what you're going to get. And the act of socialism, communism, is to change society, change the way society functions. And if enough people watch their televisions and see that people are in hysterics, that this is a really bad thing that the Republicans are doing, or anything Trump is doing is a really, really bad thing. There's a lot of people who don't realize that, wait a second, these are people who are getting paid and they're hysterical. They're getting paid to be as hysterical and as violent as possible, like Antifa. They're getting paid to be as violent as possible. The other day, they beat up a handicapped person and an elderly man in a car. They stopped him in an alley and they did thousands of damage. They're getting paid for this. What it's doing is putting fear into society. The rational, normal people who just want to live in peace, who are law-abiding, they're afraid. They see that there's this other side that's going crazy. And if they don't jump on the bandwagon, you could be next. They're riling up people who are already insane. I've said this before, and it's interesting, Rand Paul just said the same thing. Rand Paul was almost killed by a Bernie supporter. And then the guy who shot Steve Scalise, and he had a whole list of Republicans he was going to assassinate. We just found out today that as he was shooting hundreds of rounds of bullets, he was saying, "This is for health care." He's doing this because Trump wants to change or eliminate Obamacare. It's not working. It's going to implode, but as long as the law exists, it's not going to disappear on its own. If the law exists, it's going to remain. Our taxes are going up and up and up because we're fully funding everyone that's flooding the border and every person we're bringing over as a refugee. The mothers don't work and the fathers don't work. None of them work. If this isn't stopped, people that are in power, that want to bring in more and more and more Democrat voters, are the ones that are riling everyone up, making everyone hysterical, paying people to be really, really crazy and really violent. Hillary's emails were released, and she was speaking to Wall Street. She was saying that she wanted a world without borders, no borders, and an uninformed and compliant citizenry. It's the communist socialist agenda, this one world. government. In Bulgaria, there was an organization called the Illuminati. There really, really was. This is historical. One of them was riding on his horse, going to a meeting. He had leather sacks that were filled with the agenda of the Illuminati. And for some reason, a bolt of lightning came out of the sky and killed him. And that's how we know what the agenda of the Illuminati actually was. Their agenda was one world government, license to be as immoral as you could possibly be. One of the men on the Illuminati group was a pornographer. They wanted to bring down the family, destroy individuality, the rights of an individual. There be no borders. There be a one world government. Everything that communism, socialism is. That's the agenda of the Illuminati. That group was disbanded, but the idea remained, and it flooded the world. This is what's going on. They may not be calling themselves the Illuminati, but it's the people who want the one world government. And the only way you can change society, the communists say, you have to kill a third of the people off. Just like the Khmer Rouge, Pol Pot. There were entire villages that he knew he couldn't change. So he had them march to the killing fields and assassinated them all. That's how you change society. You do it by fear. They're not quite going to the lengths of Pol Pot, but what they're doing is instilling fear in us. Hillary Clinton, her calmness is more frightening than when she's enraged, like the night she lost. And we have numerous accounts that she was throwing things. They had to physically restrain her. She was drinking a lot of alcohol, going crazy. But here's her being very calm, and she's sitting back in the chair. And she's telling us, well, if you want civility brought back, you have to vote the Democrats back in. You have to vote us back in, because otherwise we're going to keep fueling the mobs. We're going to keep this violence going because we're paying for it. And we've got the trillions to do it. The money isn't going to run out. Soros's money is not going to run out. And the people who are behind this, remember, her Clinton Foundation, when she was Secretary of State, she visited 112 countries. She wasn't doing the job that was going to help America. Of course, she brought down Libya. That was one of her little pet projects. And their pet projects is bringing down all these countries. Poor people have no safe place to live anymore. They're bringing people who want to live in 7th century Arabia into 21st century America. Gaddafi was moving Libya into the future. Women had rights. Women could go to college. Women could drive cars. He was a secularist. He had changed. He was a terrorist, and he abided by every single edict of the UN. They took him down anyway, and they murdered him mercilessly. And now they have auction blocks to sell Black Africans as slaves. The country has 6 million Black slaves owned by other Black Africans. So they're just rounding up more Black Africans and selling more Black Africans. Sadly, if we want peace and civility back, she's diabolical. Her calm demeanor is diabolical. She's telling us, you better vote for the Democrats, because you're going to see more of this. You're going to see more crazy people screaming, tearing down things, and feeding these crazy people who are going out like the guy who shot Steve Scalise, ready to shoot up all the Republicans. You're going to see more of them because there's a lot of people with screws loose out there, and they're looking to do something like this. I said this in past videos, and Rand Paul said that. Just today, he said that this is going to happen. The Democrats are fueling the fire of these crazy people, telling them, you have to do this, and you're going to be the hero if you do this. If you take down the Republicans, if you take down Trump, you're going to be this great hero, because these are really evil people. And they keep telling you, well, what if you went back in time and killed baby Hitler? Wouldn't that have been a great thing? They're painting Trump and everyone associated with Trump as Hitler. So you've got these crazy people who feel that they're not doing something bad. In fact, they're saving society. What they are is a bunch of drones. They're paying people to do this, and they know there are crazy people out there that will do this that they don't even have to pay. But they feel they're the superhero. You notice we have an influx of superhero movies. I think there's a reason for that, why Hollywood is pumping these superhero movies out. They used to be one every 10, 20 years. Now they're pumping them out because the crazy people live in a different world. They live in an alter world. And they feel by doing what they're doing, they're Superman, they're Iron Man, they're the Black Panther, they're Wonder Woman, whoever. You just name your superhero. They're making them believe that that's what they're going to be. But little do they know that the authorities will catch them, and they'll probably, go to jail and be like, oh, but if you get the Democrat in office, like Obama pardoned thousands, is it over almost 7,000 people he pardoned. People even with life sentences. They're saying, well, just sit it out when the Democrat gets in office. By the time 2020 rolls around, the rational, sane people are going to be so scared they will do anything to stop it. Like Mao sent out his Red Guard, the young people. He brainwashed the young people, and they went out and they terrorized and they tortured and they killed the middle class people to a point where the middle class people started to commit suicide. They couldn't take it anymore. They're telling us, if you can't take this anymore, just vote the Democrats in. Vote all Democrats in. In fact, we're going to change the electoral process, which is going to imbalance the entire country. These states that are fully Democrat, like California, believe it or not, the counties in California did go red. But if you've got people working at the polls that will make up fake ballots or put the ballots through several times, which we found out, Jill Stein's recount, we found out that that's exactly what they did, because it said on the outside of the box 3,000 votes for Hillary. Inside, there were only 50 votes for Hillary. So it's much easier to fix the election and make fake votes if you take away the electoral process, which was put in place because the people on the coast think differently than the people who are the steel workers, the industrial plants, the farmers, people in different parts of the country that have different needs. It's a republic. A republic stands for the minority. It means that everyone has a voice. No matter how small your group is, you have a voice. A democracy, the majority rules. If the majority, you understand, if the majority wants slavery, if that's what the majority of the people of the country want, it's going to be great. So if the majority is Democrat, a majority are not American citizens. We see day after day, we hear about how they're allowing people who are not citizens to vote, how Terry McAuliffe did it on July 7th of 2016. He changed the ballots. The ballots now can go through electronically, and you don't have to check the box if you're a citizen or check the box that says that you're not a felon. So 200,000 felons ended up voting. And guess what? She won by 200,000 votes, believe it or not. But Virginia has about 8 million immigrants, refugees, undocumented. He made it so you don't have to be a citizen to vote. In College Park, Maryland has made it that illegal aliens can vote in municipal elections. Well, once you're registered to vote, you honestly think those people are going to be barred from voting in presidential elections? I don't think so. How do you do that? How do you change that? You don't. Once they're registered, they're registered. In California, motor voter law, motor voter. You don't have to check the box if you're a citizen or not. You get a license, you can vote. Voter registration ballots in California are already fixed that if you are not an American citizen, all you have to do is put down an address. That's all you have to do. You don't have to present any ID at all whatsoever. You don't have to present a library card. You don't have to present a utility bill. They ask you for these things, but if you don't have any of them, just put down an address, and you can just put down the address of your local post office. And that's it. You're registered to vote. That's all it takes in California. It's happening all over this country. And that's how the Democrats, they're trying to find different ways to make sure they cheat and win the election. They didn't cheat enough. They were trying. Remember how it took 3 months for California to count all their votes? How could that possibly be? Even paper ballots are put through machines. Why would it take that long? Well, you've got time to make up more votes, make up 1 million more votes, or 3, whatever she won by. It was done in California. And New York City is also filled with illegal aliens who work under the table and get benefits. So unfortunately, American citizens who are really poor are not getting the benefits. Their benefits are cut. While I hear every day of illegal aliens they're arrested for a crime, and they have about 5 or 6 food stamp cards, EBT cards on them with different names. Because they don't have a social security number, they just keep going back and making up new names, and they get more and more benefits. Be the same address. They're all living in the same house. You just keep going back and giving different names. So what's happened is that benefits for poor Americans have been cut drastically because there's so much fraud going on. And I personally I'm eating less than 1 meal a day. I eat a couple of eggs, or I have a taco, but that's it. Once a day. I can't do any more. Can't afford it. That's the way it is. The government isn't going to help you because there's too much of a burden. You walk over the border, 98% of the people are allowed in. Very few are being turned back. They get everything paid for, and they can work under the table. If you are an American, you can't take advantage of this because you're an American. And unfortunately, I know what it's like. I'm living proof and I know what the fear is, that very soon you will be on the streets. I know what that's like. I know what that fear is. It's not going to be that much longer. As nicely dressed as I look Now, Trump can't build the wall, he says, because Congress is standing in the way. Trump can build the wall. He's in charge of protecting the border. He can send the army down there. He can have this wall built. He doesn't need the Congress. See, Congress holds the purse strings, but at the same time, his job is to protect our borders. Just like every single president you hear. I heard Bill Clinton talking about it, Bush, Obama, they all talked about sealing the border and only letting people in that are going to contribute to America. They all promised to do this. Totally turned around because they realized they lost the vote of the American citizen. They lost the blue-collar workers because the automobile plants were sent to other countries. What did they do? Obama put in so many regulations that the companies couldn't afford to stay in this country. So they lost that vote. And the farmlands are being sold to China. We've got enormous amounts of land, good land, that's being sold to China. They're destroying the country, and the way they're doing it, they're destroying the families. When they found the documents that the Illuminati wanted to put in place, was to destroy the family, was to destroy the individual. In communism, you're nothing but a cell in the state, and the state comes first. Nazism, it's the same thing. Nazism, the Nazi party comes first. You are nothing but a cell that works for the state. This is being put in place. And so the people who have families, and they're good, solid citizens that just want to work hard, they don't want that. They want a society where everyone's a drone. Everyone is basically faceless, nameless. There's no uniqueness. There's no family. There's one party. That's what the Democrats want. One party rule. They have all the control. They want to destroy the electoral system, and now they want to change the Supreme Court. Trump is nominating these guys that are getting through, and we might have law and order put back in, and justice, the Constitution finally might rule. They're working on destroying the Supreme Court. Anything to get their agenda through, instilling fear into all of us by having these crazy shooters. We just found out that, was it in New Mexico, there was a group of Muslims that were being trained, young Muslim men, being trained to be school assassins. There was going to be assassins all over this country. Very hard to tell me, with the NSA, with all the cameras, that this wasn't caught earlier. Somebody put this in place. Somebody in our government put this in place, and they let this go on. And finally, somebody with decency caught it. Somebody who has a conscience caught this. But a prior administration must have known about this. An administration that wants to take the guns away, just like communism, you take the guns away. Nazi, Hitler took the guns away. That's the first thing they do. They disarm the people. You know how Black Lives Matter is against the police? Well, they're in lockstep with the socialists, with Obama that wants to take the guns away from the people, which means the only people that will have guns will be the police, and it will be a militarized police state. We will be living in a military state. You ever watch movies and you see these countries in South America? They're all, and even in Africa, they're wearing fatigues. They carry big rifles. It's all about revolution. But it's the government that's wearing the fatigues. the government that has the guns. And it's the people that have to stay in line. They are disarmed. That's what a socialist government is, not a utopia of peace. Che Guevara, he killed millions, brutally raped women, and killed all the homosexuals. Same thing, Castro. Who did he jail? Cuba hates black people. Who's in the jail? The black people. Anybody who doesn't think the same way as Fidel Castro, who is the hero of Colin Kaepernick, Castro and Che Guevara, and Obama, this idea that the Democrats are bleeding heart liberals that just want to take care of everyone with free health care, bring in the entire world, which will destroy the sewer system. There will be no water. There'll be no place to live. There won't be enough land to grow vegetables. Talk about carbon emissions. We'll have to be putting out a lot of carbon emissions, or we're going to freeze to death in the winter. They are wolves in sheep's clothing. They are wolves that are in the guise of bleeding heart liberals, that really, we care, we want civility, and the only way to bring it back is to give us absolute power. In November, you must vote out the Democrats. I'd love to see libertarian candidates on the ballot. I'd love to see people who are Trump supporters on the ballot. Trump is the revolutionary. He's the one that's not in the swamp. He's the outsider. He is the only one that was actually the outsider. The others are politicians, and they all started as lawyers. Lawyers. One of the first guys I dated told me, a lawyer is nothing but, because I worked for lawyers, nothing but a professional liar. And what do? They get into politics. And what do politicians always do? They always lie. They never do what they say they're going to do. Obama was going to bring us all together. It was going to be utopia. He was going to end the race wars. Well, what happened? He fueled the race wars. Let the riots break out. And then afterwards, his own, just after the city's burned, and now crime is spiking because the police are afraid to get out of their cars lest they be indicted or killed. At the end, his own Justice Department found no guilt. Darren Wilson was not guilty of any crime afterwards, but he let the riots go on before the conclusion. That is the world we're living in. Condemning people before we find out the truth, before a verdict is rendered and all the evidence is presented. We're damning and condemning people. We just saw this with Brett Kavanaugh. This is a circus. Both sides of the aisle need to respect each other and respect this man's intelligence and his fair and just decisions, and the fact that the Supreme Court cites his decisions all the time. He's actually, that's really interesting. The Supreme Court is citing someone that is on the court right below the appeals court, right below theirs. They're citing him because he's correct. His interpretation of the law, the Constitution, is correct. They tried to destroy him and painting him with all these brushes that make him so evil. And then you've got these nutcases out there that it takes one spark to let off a nutcase. Oh, and when the nutcase goes off, they don't point the finger towards them, that they're fueling this anger and this violence. It's directly their rhetoric that caused the guy to go out there to kill Republicans, and he ended up shooting Steve Scalise. The answer is always, it's the guns. It's the guns' fault. We have to take away the guns. It's always something else. It's always their agenda. That's what you hear. But the first done by bombs. It was done by an adult man on the school board. I've got a video about that. You have to search for it, but it's called the deadliest school shooting in U.S. history. Nobody watches it, probably because nobody really wants to. It's an unpleasant subject. To end violence in schools and to stop children from getting killed, there are lots of ways to kill the children. Lots of ways. And the deadliest of all was done by bombs. But the first thing what they want to do is gotta take the guns away. That's what the socialism does. That's what it does first, is take the guns away. We better wake up, people. Wake up. What she said was a threat. Well, to bring civility back, if you want us to stop going crazy in the streets and paying these protesters, and if you want us to tell Antifa to stop beating up elderly and handicapped people, you vote us back in. So we are to vote the people into office to rule over us. This is the reason why these people are so crazy. You want these people who are using fear and violence and inciting crazy people to go out and massacre other people. You actually want these people in office to rule over you, where you are guilty, not presumed innocent. You are guilty first. And there will be no trial anymore. There will be no trial. That's the way it is in socialism. There will be no trial. In a communist government, they want to take you down, they take you down. They point at you and find you guilty, you're guilty. That's it. You're never seen or heard from again. That's what happens in all these South American countries. They aren't the way they are because of America exists. They are the way they are because they adopted socialist. It's a revolutionary. They're all Che Guevara. And it's all a military type rule. Militarized police. Everybody's got fatigues. That movie Missing with Jack Lemmon. Missing. That's what happens. People go to South America and they're never seen from again. Because they don't want you. They just take you out. And they kill you. You're gone. These are the people who are using fear tactics. And Trump is trying to work within the Constitution. He's using the Senate and the Congress, our legislative branch, to make law. He's working within the system a non-violent way. There's nothing he's done that's violent. Nothing. He wants the border sealed because he wants to end sex trafficking. He wants to end child slavery. He wants to end women. 91% of them get raped when they cross. I bet it's 100% get raped when they cross the border. The drugs that are flooding into this country, killing us. He wants to end that. And you're saying that he's the violent one when he wants to stop violence? And he only wants to let in the people into this country who are not, who are good, hardworking citizens. And I'm sure there's a lot of Mexicans who fall into that category. He just wants to know, just like anybody else in the world that wants to come here. You file the paperwork, they investigate to find out if you are a jihadist or working for the drug cartels. He wants to find out who you are first. And then he'll let you in. But as it is now, the border's wide open. Everybody's being let in. Only a few are being sent back. It's impossible. And there are American citizens, homeless Americans, and people who are not homeless, who still, the children are starving and hungry. And we can't feed our own people. But the Democrats want all these people to come in because they want the votes, because they've lost the votes of the American citizen. They're not the party of the poor. They never were. They were always the party of the KKK. They were always the party of slavery. They were always the party of Jim Crow. And people like that, KKK, Jim Crow, don't you think those people would be the ones that would lie, that would initiate torture, that would cause violence, like the KKK went out at night to lynch people? Don't you think they would be the ones to do that and to paint the other side as evil and them as good, so you vote them into office? Don't you think? That's exactly what happened. So you better go and vote, and you better vote for America. Vote for the freedom that is America. Vote for individuality. You're not a drone and you're not a cell in the state. Vote for intact families, because intact families, there's less likely that the children are going to get into drugs or crime. They're more likely to go to college or just get a good job, a good trade job. Go to the polls and vote for America. Get rid of these Democrats. The reason why they're all doing this is because they're being funded by outside sources. Soros does this to countries all over the world. The people vote the government in, and it's usually a right-centered government where freedom rules and free speech rules. And then he comes in and pays people to ride in the streets to take down the government, to bring in a socialist government. This is what he keeps doing. And our money, when Obama was in office, our money was being used. 6 elections, he took our money and gave it to interfere and meddle in 6 different elections. And the money that he's authorized when he was president is still going to these countries to bring in socialism. It's happening. It's real. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's real. Tell your friends, speak up, share this video. Come on, people, start sharing my videos. The truth, we got to get the truth out. So, thank you for joining me. Like, subscribe. I appreciate you watching, and get this word out. Thank you. Good night.